So earlier than normal tonight, we are going to do the reading as we're into chapter 11 of this book. There's only 13 chapters. The 13th chapter is really short, and then we get into Parallels, which is where we get into the really fun stuff. It's just 20 pages from now.
Crazy.
Parallels is amazing. Parallels.
Crazy.
Parallels. I don't know if you remember it or not.
I remember bits of it, and just like, holy crap, he had to have had stuff wrote down. Otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah, once I got into Parallels, I'm like, all right, we're into parallel universes here. I got to keep track of everything, because otherwise...
Right, that was my thought.
Otherwise, I'm going to get lost.
Know
so
where and when everybody is.
All right, especially when you get to the big battle that takes place. I had to have... I actually had a map. I actually had a map that I was going by. Like, I had a big piece of the... not construction paper, the art board. The art boards that you get at the dollar store.
Oh, yeah.
I had a huge poster board on my floor, and I had where everybody was and what was going on, and then I would, okay, this is gone, and they're gone. Okay, this is happening. Okay, now they're over here. It was sort of like you see in the movies when you've got, like, the war generals, and they've got the whole thing. All right, so we're going to push ahead here. We're going to... Yeah, I was doing that same kind of thing when I wrote Parallels. All right, so starting chapter 11, Sabal arrives home and his rage is palpable. He looks around and sees that his personal escape device has sent him to his house. He resists the urge to trash it and tries taking deep breaths to get control over himself. Trake is free, Earth's won a battle, and Gora's likely dead. It's so very difficult for him to keep any semblance of composure here. This was something Sabal feared after his first meeting with the Earthlings. There had been a ferocity in them which he knew Mike Translow identified with. When Falteris tried backing out of his declaration of war, Sabal should have known that something like this was coming. Now here he was alone and slowly realizing that he was now the rightful leader of Voltil. When Gora had killed two of his upper-level officers to appease Falteris and appear to be innocent of what happened on the Arcologies, he had left an opening there that had yet to be filled. That meant Sabal was second in command, a position he'd always figured he would have to fight Ver for. But he wasn't back as far as he knew, meaning he was the only one here. Ver was likely a prisoner of war, and that worked to Sabal's advantage. Sabal heads for the front door of his home with his chin raised high. By now, the footage of what happened on Earth was likely known world over, but Altilians didn't know Sabal was here now, and as far as they knew, he'd been here the whole time. Keep in mind, he went out kind of under the like a thief in the night kind of thing. He had been pretending to be someone else, and that had worked to his advantage at this very moment. One of the best moments for him during one of his planet's darkest. He would have been outdoors with his face covered before this moment. Now he had to show confidence, and he was going to have to lie like he never had before. He had to make his people believe in him and take their minds off of what was happening elsewhere and the apparent defeat of his unstoppable, in quotes, worship. He had always hated that nickname and felt it invited bad things happening, since a sense of irony loved striking quickly and without mercy. I was thinking of Titanic when I wrote that line. The drive to the legislature building's a quick one. Sabal emerges from his vehicle on the roof and finds that reporters are there waiting for him, though certainly not in the numbers they had seen on Earth. This was far more controlled, and more press members seemed disappointed to see him. He approaches them and takes a deep breath. He knows he can lie, but this is a history-altering lie. The press may not be interested in him yet, but he is about to change all of that in a hurry. I've witnessed the incident on Earth, and I am appalled I'm as appalled as the general public. What is important now is maintaining focus on what is at task here. Our world is in a state of flux and one of change, he says in their native tongue, managing to stay even-tempered and show no stress in his tone. He was made for this line of work. I have to assume Gora is either dead or captured. We also have witnessed Ver being placed into their custody. It is truly alarming, but I am here to assure our people this will not be allowed to stand. In his stead, I am assuming leadership of Voltil. I do not take this job without some reservations. I know I have big shoes to fill, and that I can never be a replacement for Gora or his lineage. I know this planet has seen me at my worst with what happened on Arcology 1237, but this will mark a turning point for our kind. We no longer have to engage in diplomacy with people aligned with Mike Translow. We can now show them how merciless our kind can be when backed against the wall. I've heard the accusations of this Addison person, who is supposedly from Conley. I have many doubts regarding this claim, and I believe it is a pathetic attempt by their people to prey on an ancient prophecy on our world regarding one who would be the downfall of our place within the galaxy. We have ways to turn this around, ways that Falteres and Earth are in the dark about. I will turn this around for us and make Gora proud. I will gladly hand my position back to him should he return at some future date. This is my promise to our people. I send a warning to Miss Talia Laris, leader of Falteres. Stop Mike Translow. Listen to your people before it's too late and before I am forced to do things I would rather not do. He lies. I want this to turn in a different direction. Cale Rightly must remain as your leader in the military, and Mike should be dead. There's no other way to restore peace between our worlds. He should be exterminated as a symbolic gesture by Falteres regarding the desire to save lives, as his death would save billions. War cannot end well for our enemies. That is why Altair fell to us, and they became servants to us. This is why Falteres has managed to maintain peace for decades with our people. This is why Earth needs to consider laying down their harmless weapons and negotiate for peace. Do the right thing here, or the Altilian world will be forced to do some terrible things in the name of defending itself. Now, I must attend an emergency meeting of our government and map out our next course of action. The press talks amongst themselves as he moves on. He could see their amazement growing with each word. He's aware now, more than ever, that his destiny is to lead this planet to the ultimate victory. Gora had been weak, hadn't planned well at all. He will plan well, and he will be devious in ways Gora never would have dreamed. Next scene. Trake has his arms wrapped around the shoulder of Addison as they take a seat in the pub within the Colosseum. The building's been evacuated and the military is making sure everyone's been cleared out, also working to ensure there are no stray Altilians about ready to cause violence and bloodshed in a measure of revenge against them. As Trake and Addison sit across the table from one another, the gravity of this moment hits them both, and they are on the verge of tears. I never thought I would see you again, Addison says finally. Trake picks up a glass of water that was left behind by a previous patron, takes a sip, and nods as he tries to settle himself. This is a rough time for me, Addison. You see, I'm not the only one they saved. There are others? Addison's eyes grow wide. They plucked a few hundred of my kind from Altair before they finished firebombing of the place. We were forced to watch the final destruction of everything and everyone we hold dear. We were told, as the most advanced form of reptile life in this galaxy, we would be preserved. We were told it was a great honor, and that we had to show our gratitude of the firebomb, or the firebombing would be rained down upon us. Trake gulps down the rest of the water and looks around for another drink. Stress is making him thirsty. Now that you're free, you're worried about them then. Addison pauses and tries to formulate an answer to this dilemma. I guess we could try a rescue mission, but I think this goes further than that here. We need some time, Trake. I don't want to lead a suicide mission, but I'll be working on something right away. If it makes you feel better, I doubt they'll be up for killing them since they're trying to play themselves off as the victim here. Trake nods. Oh, I agree, but I don't know how long that will last. They're known for changing their minds quickly and without any regard for logic or thinking ahead. That's a big part of the reason I'm free. Gora should have realized coming here was a bad idea, but his ego didn't see things as they really were. Maybe the galaxy isn't big enough for his ego. Addison raises a shot of tequila he finds on a nearby table. I'll drink to that, he says, and slams it down. He slaps his hand on the table, the strength of the drink catching him off guard as it burns all the way down. That was potent, he says. Addison, where do I go from here? My kind are isolated from me. I'm a freak show on this planet. Do I go to Falteres? There are so many uncertainties. I dreamed of this moment for years, and now that it's here, I don't know what to do or how to handle it. Addison grabs one of Trake's hands. My friend, you'll be fine. I intend to visit Falteres and see this Talia Laris person. Maybe I can talk some sense into her regarding an approach to the Altilians. I have some hope she'll make the right decision anyway. I gave up on humanity once, and I'll be damned if I'm going to do it again. Trake grabs a bottle off another nearby table. I'll drink to that, he says, and slams it down. He stops coughing right away. Hot sauce. Hot sauce, he says while waving his hands in front of his face. Trake, always the performer, Addison says with a wink, getting Trake a glass of Bailey's, which should replace that burn with another one, though far less biting. Next scene. Catherine Dorian feels like a forgotten woman. She's a member of Division 1237, and she's proud of that position within the Arcology. But she's at a loss for words with what's going on, and she feels powerless in the midst of it all. She's dressed for the part, and she's being trained to fight, but she's uncertain where this path will lead her. All right. The Arcology has been turned into a formidable weapon orbiting planet Earth. There was talk of installing a device capable of creating a wormhole that could send them anywhere they wanted to go in an instant, something her people wouldn't have dreamt of weeks ago. The Altilians had planned to turn this into another steel coffin, but they fought against them and managed to become stronger in their resolve to do the right thing. She sits and eats her dinner while looking out the window at the wreckage of the Altilian warship. It's nearly dead in space and incapable of firing a shot. Teams of men from the Peace Restorer have been heading onto the crippled ship to capture prisoners of war, and they've met virtually no resistance from what Catherine understands. As she stares out the window, Tanya Decker approaches, her lunch on a metal tray the same as Catherine's. Can I sit here? Of course. Penny, for your thoughts? I was working at a lingerie store just a few weeks ago. I was living with Jensen Briggs, a man I intended to marry. Everything was good. I was starting a new life for myself. He was a good man, very romantic, and damn good at security work. I always felt safe with him. I don't know. In the midst of all this, maybe I haven't dealt with the reality of the situation I find myself in. Maybe it's easier to soldier on and not face what happened. Tanya eats a few of her French fries and looks Catherine in the eyes. I came to Arcology 443 and expected to find everyone dead. Once we got there, the scene we found there, I was certain everyone had to be dead. I figured anyone who was alive would be deranged, mentally unstable, and homicidal. I couldn't imagine anyone living in the middle of that and not going mad. You proved me wrong, Miss Dorian. Catherine again looks out at the Altilian warship. Royally screwed up my life. I can't have that back. I can kill every last one of them. That won't bring it back either. It eats me up inside. My survival instinct must be stronger than my coping instinct. Tanya laughs. Hey, we're all coping. But you're coping on a level we aren't. I learned through the news media my father was among those who met with Gora aboard the fake Arcology 1237. I have to cope with the fact I was wrong about my father. Brent Decker might just have some hope left in him yet. He took a great risk meeting them, and deep down I know he did it for me. He envied my strength of character, even admitted it sometimes. My strength is nothing compared to yours, Catherine. You could have given up. No one would have blamed you if you had. You instead managed to find your way onto the same level Mike and I were on. You braved so much. I mean, one view of the bloodied bodies would have sent many to hide in a corner on that agricultural level and just opt to stay there for good. Catherine shrugs. I did what I had to do. I figured it was a matter of time before whoever did that might come after me. I didn't want to just sit and wait. I thought if I went and made the move, I might catch them off guard. If it was hoping to be a fight, if it was going to be a fight, I wanted to be the aggressive one. Like I said, my survival instinct trumps my coping mechanisms. As they look out the window at the same moment, an explosion rocks the Altilian warship. The shockwave's visible, and it causes the Arcology to shake and rattle. Oh, crap, Tanya says, and she rushes with Catherine close behind towards the battle bridge. As they rush in, they find Nathan Helm viewing a 3D rendering of the ship in real time. Has to be a self-destruct, damn it, he says. I have engines on full to get away from it. I don't know if we should if we make it, that thing, should that thing be nuclear. I'd rather not be torn down to subatomic level by those cowards. The Arcology lurches. The systems are new, and the engines are still not up to where they should be. Arcologies are equipped for a little more than boosters, capable of short bursts meant for righting their position in orbit. Though their boosters have been added to, Nathan and the others wonder if they have enough, if that can be enough once the cascade of explosion reaches a breaking point and the warship comes apart. Next scene. Clearly the order had been given once Gora had safely cleared from the ship. It was common practice in war to scuttle a ship rather than have the enemy recover it and then use the technology found against them. Ken Young was flying in his SS-210 alongside Mike's shuttle when they saw the first explosion. The decision Ken made from here was to head back towards the Altilian warship. It was a dangerous decision, but he couldn't cut and run. He couldn't leave his men behind to die if he could save any of them from such a fate. He's cursing himself as he flies back for believing this was going to end peacefully. Now, he has to make up for his lack of foresight. The Altilian madness was never going to be underestimated, and yet here they were. Ken flies close to the ship and sees numerous small explosions near the engineering section. While their Earthling allies don't know what's there, Ken does. He acts fast, flying at the engines and opening fire. He fires at the engines in the section just ahead of them. He sees pieces of metal flying into deep space. But he doubts that will be enough. He sees other 210 fighters retreating, shuttles trying to keep away, and many unlikely to be able to do so if the big explosion happens. Ken concentrates his laser fire on the section ahead of the engines. He sees explosions inside the ship getting closer. They've set off a chain reaction, a final show of force against Ken's and their allies. Come on, have to hit this, he says in frustration as he continues firing. The ship's crippled, but clearly their shields are at least partially intact and are absorbing his shots for the most part. The area he's firing on would have been shot free of the rest of the ship by now if it wasn't for the shields. He locks a missile on the target. This could be just as bad as the chain reaction inside the ship, but it's his only hope. He fires the missile and knows it was a mistake when he sees its trajectory. It isn't going to hit the right spot. It actually hits further forward than he'd intended, and the chain reaction reaches its intended goal. It's a blinding light for a split second. The fusion reactor blows, and the power of the explosion tears Ken's ship to pieces. No one aboard the warship's going to survive, and the resulting wave takes out numerous shuttles. A few of the other SS-210 fighters are destroyed, and the explosion wave hits Terran Force 1 head-on. Next scene. The Arcology rocks violently and starts to spin. The artificial gravity is thankfully set to prevent anyone from being thrown to the ceiling, or everyone aboard would be dead quickly. Nathan's left fighting to keep control over the ship from his position while wave after wave passes through the ship. They detonated a fusion reactor. It's got a lot of punch to it. Clearly, Tanya says as she hangs onto the table for dear life. Glad it's bolted down. She wondered about when she first saw this table, but she wondered about that the first time she saw the table. Her curiosity's been satisfied. How long can these last? Nathan continues scrolling through numbers from the explosion and the chaos passing through them. I don't know what kind of trap they sprung here, but the waves are staying steady in their intensity. I'm just trying to back up so we have a chance here. The stress on the hull from the vibrations alone could kill us if we can't get far enough away. I thought this was over, Catherine says, also holding onto the table for dear life. The chairs slide back and forth along the floor. One strikes the back of Catherine's calves, but she refuses to fall down or panic. This is the survival instinct she's so proud of. Nathan keeps plugging away at the controls. He's been forced to take complete control of the ship from this position. This isn't time to pass information on to anyone else who isn't in the room with him. If he fails, no one will ever know what he did anyways. Nathan changes the orientation of the Arcology and turns it on its side so it essentially rides the waves away from the ship. This dramatically increases their speed, and Nathan tries to move his way around the Earth. Putting distance between them and the destroyed ship was one thing. Putting Earth in between was a potential lifesaver. I think I'm going to throw up, Tanya says, as the chairs hit the back of her legs. The sway of the ship not as bad now, but still present. Just as Catherine's arms feel like they might give out, the waves stop. She continues holding on for a few moments just to make sure it isn't a momentary rest. Once she's convinced they're safe, she lets go of the table and becomes aware of how sore her hands and wrists are from holding on so tightly. The hell was that? Nathan shakes his head. The waves haven't stopped from what I can tell. I just managed to get us far enough around the planet the waves can't reach us. Basically, their engines were set as the most massive and effective bomb I've ever seen. I don't know why they waited so long to set it off, but I watched them vaporize some of the SS-210 fighters. The radar shows we lost some Arcologies as well. Honestly, this was a massive strike. Showing us we can't match them in that department, Tanya says with a nod. Nathan scratches his head and searches for something profound to say. Our history shows us the most dangerous foe is usually the one who believes that their own death for their cause is the greatest thing they can do. We can't match them in that category. No. We can't match them in the crazy either, I guess. Can that explosion wave reach the surface of the planet, Catherine asks. Nathan's eyes widen. Yeah. It hit the planet. The warship's proximity to the atmosphere. This is really bad, he says, and his head drops. Last scene of the chapter. Trake's glass starts to shake first. He stands, and Addison stands as well. Earthquake? Trake asks. No, shockwave, duck. Addison pulls Trake down to the floor and shards of glass implode around the room. The ground shakes and rolls under them, and the Colosseum itself seems ready to topple. The waves continue, and the air rushes through the room, the pressure causing Addison's ears to pop. He feels like weight is being piled on him from all sides as the air is compressed by the incoming wave. Just as he fears he'll pass out, the waves suddenly stop. Trake slowly raises his head from the floor. How did you know? A shudder passes through Addison before he answers. The Altilians engineered a ship to explode over Conley when we fought back. According to Geyer, it was the only self-destructive of its kind in their fleet. It's a fusion explosion. If that had happened with them hovering over the city, we'd be vapor right now. The ground would be scorched. When would Geyer have told you that? I was talking to him before things got really ugly. He shared that with me as a warning that we had better play nice or we'd regret it. He told me they were willing to do anything it took to show their superiority, even self-sacrifice like that. Trake sits back down after righting his chair. He's having a hard time catching his breath as apparently all of the excitement had done a number on his body. I don't know how much more of this I can take, Addison. Addison heads to one of the broken windows and surveys the damage around them. While the Colosseum had been built to withstand a strong shake like that, many of the buildings in the more rundown part of the city aren't made to withstand that kind of shaking. There are alarms sounding all around, and police sirens are now heard all over as well, while many panic in the streets. The overcrowded city was vulnerable to shockwaves such as that. This city is well composed to others, is well built compared to others, you know. I'm scared to calculate the scope of the havoc this will have caused elsewhere. The Altilians are always good for massive death tolls and complete destruction. That should sow the seeds of fear, too. It takes what was a clear-cut victory and makes it a saw-off at best, Trake says sadly. Addison heads back to the table and motions for Trake to follow him. Come on. We gotta help these people. The battle's only really begun. Or has really only begun. I'm not hiding out here. I just hope that's the only wave we're going to experience today. I don't know my heart can handle another, Trake says, as he gets up to follow Addison to the exit. You exaggerate, Trake. You'll bury us all. And that's the end of chapter 11. So, yeah. Yeah, you scuttle your own ship. And so the Altilians prove right there they're definitely the bad guys. And then again, for Sabali can go, that wasn't me. Gora did that. I didn't do that. You guys should probably listen, but that has ramifications on the rest of the story. Anyways, there you go. We'll continue this at a later date, probably in a 3 or 4 week period of time. I would think. Probably, because she's getting bored of it. She's been very vocal about how she's tired of it. She's really tired of it, so you know.
So not how this works.
The one thing too is that, you know, the original story I had written, there was a huge mass extinction event on Altil, and so I knew when I started rewriting this, I thought, you know, there kind of has to be this massive, horrible war fallout in this book. So that's kind of the prelude or the start of what goes on with Earth, which is awful. But we'll get into that as the story continues. Thank you guys so much for your continued viewership. It's still around 200 per reading, so that's still pretty good. And thank you guys for your continued watching of these, and we will continue to be here and do this, and she'll continue pinning more and more of the surgical caps. So there we go.
True story.
Thank you guys for all your support, and remember, stay home as much as you can. Stay safe if you can or you can't. And keep your hands nice and clean. Good advice at all times. 365 days a year. There's nothing wrong with keeping your hands clean. Thanks again for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.